Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to this July 10th, 2018 meeting of the Springdale City Council. Before we get started, I invite you to stand with me and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Fulford will bring the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day and for all of your many blessings. And Lord, you've bestowed so many blessings upon us as a city and as a nation. And Father, I pray for wisdom tonight, for all the decisions that are being made, that you would help us to make the right decisions. And I pray that your blessings would be upon us tonight. In your Son's name, amen.
Amen.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order, and as usual, we have large print agendas. Mr. Mock's looking at them, I see, if anybody needs a large print agenda. And we'll call the meeting to order and ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Rick Culver.
Here.
Jeff Watson.
Here.
Mike Overton. Jacoby Fulfer.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Rick Evans.
Here.
Jim Reed.
Here.
Kathy Jaycox. Here. Ernest Cate.
I'm here. And as you can see, the mayor is not here, so you all will need to elect President Pro Tem to serve over the meeting. Are there any nominations?
Jim Reed's a short timer.
Yeah, I think
that's a good idea.
since we had that announcement at the last council meeting, it would only be appropriate to
Yeah.
honor our outgoing member.
I think that's a good
Is that a
idea.
motion? Or do we
So
have
moved.
second?
All right, have a motion and a second, roll call.
Watson.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox. Yes. Culver.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Reed, the meeting is yours.
Take your throne.
Yeah, okay. Let's make-
Oh, yeah. Okay, this is a time that the council sets aside to hear comments from the citizens on anything that's not on tonight's agenda. If anybody in the audience has anything to say for us, please step up to the podium and give us your name and address, and we will listen to what you have to say tonight. Seeing nobody, we'll go down to 6, the approval of minutes for the June 26th meeting. Do I hear a motion for that?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from last meeting as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay, number 7, procedural motion. Council, what's your pleasure here?
Ray and B.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for A and B. Roll call?
Fulfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox. Yes. Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Carries 7-0. I can read number 8.
Do what? Okay, 8, I'm going to give this resolution to Ernest.
Thank you. This is a resolution endorsing participation in the Sales and Use Tax Refund Program authorized by the Consolidated Incentive Act of 2003 and Arkansas Code Annotated Section 15-4-2706D. This is for True Track Flight Systems, Inc., 1488 South Old Missouri Road.
I move the resolution pass.
Second?
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox. Yes. Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Fulfer.
Yes.
Carries 7-0.
Okay, now, number 9, we're at the Planning Commission. Patsy?
This is a request for a conditional use for a tandem lot split. This is property owned by Southwest Springdale 49 LLC. It's kind of a unique situation in that this property is being included in a preliminary plat, and will be final platted for this, but they need to transfer the title of the property before all that's taken care of. And there will be a second lot that's created as a true tandem lot because of the location of the landfill, which will not be transferred with this land sale that they're working on right now. So the Planning Commission reviewed this, recommends approval of this conditional use for this tandem lot with the understanding that it'll all be folded into the final plat when that comes through. Similar situation that we did for Sam's when it was built up there. We went ahead and did a tandem lot so they could move forward and get going, and then all of that got rolled in together. Title of the resolution reads, a resolution approving a conditional use for a tandem lot split for Southwest Springdale 49 LLC.
Pass.
Second.
Motion and a second, the resolution passed. Roll call, please. Oh, any comments from the audience, please? To the council? Roll call, please.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Fulfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Carry 7-0.
Okay, the next on our agenda is the Finance Committee. And it'll be by Chairman Jeff Watson.
Did we talk about this
Yes.
We did.
at the committee meeting?
We did.
Who did that? Thank you.
Go ahead, I'll go ahead and tell you, we had a resolution in the budget for the City of Springdale Fire Department, and this, two new Emerson power loading systems. And it was brought before the city without a recommendation because there wasn't enough that was there for the full Finance Committee.
Chief?
Basically, this is for 2 new ambulances that comes out of the ambulance replacement fund. So we're just asking to have the authority to spend that money out of the ambulance replacement fund.
Can you just give us a little bit of a history and status of that fund?
We can, by the time we actually have to pay for them, we should have about an extra 25, 30,000 left.
And how,
In that
how does
fund.
that fund build up?
It's ambulance fees, what we charge the patient
All
for
ambulance
transports.
fees go into that?
No, only
percentage?
10%.
And I believe part of this is from one of the ambulances that was wrecked.
Correct.
And it's restricted to ambulances
It is.
and equipment for ambulances?
Yes, sir.
And how often, when's the last time we purchased ambulances out of
We
that?
purchased an ambulance 4 years ago.
Okay, so it takes a while to build back up.
It does. It does.
Is there any insurance money that came in?
There was, sir. There was about 103,000 that came in from the insurance on the one that we wrecked.
So this is in addition to that?
Yes.
I'll move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, any comment from the audience? Anybody else on the council? Roll call, please.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Fulfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Carry 7-0.
I'm sorry, I should have asked Mike, if you don't mind, could I ask, so you'll be adding 2 new ambulances?
We'll
One
actually
new
buy 2 new
replacement.
ambulances, but we'll add an ambulance to our fleet. So instead
we'll
of
have-
4 full-time ambulances, we'll have 5.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Police and Fire Committee reports with Chairman Rick Culver.
Thank you. We have an ordinance to waive competitive bidding for the purchase of EMS powerless systems, and I'll let Chief Irwin talk about this.
Basically, this is a striker system that works with the cot and the actual loading of the cot into the ambulance. It's what we have on all of our other ambulances. The actual ambulance that was wrecked that the insurance company totaled, we have pulled that out. It's since been inspected and it's good to go in one of them. But we need to purchase one more for that new ambulance that we're adding, and we want them to be interchangeable. That's why we're asking to waive competitive bidding.
Okay, it's an ordinance to waive competitive bidding for the purchase of an EMS power lift system.
With the orders do pass.
Second.
Okay, any comment from the audience? Anything else from the council? Roll call, please.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Fulfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Does have an emergency clause.
Emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Fulfer,
Yes.
Boston.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 7-0.
Thank y'all.
Number 12, Street and Capital Improvement Committee reports, Chairman Rick Evans.
We had a meeting last week, Street CIP, and we have 3 different resolutions on the agenda tonight. All of them were brought for the council recommends approval, and the first one is a resolution appropriating funds for land acquisition for the municipal. And this is property on East Emma that, Commission's been looking to buy for quite some time. They had appraised the value of $304, what we're spending on it.
I'll move the resolution pass.
Second.
Any comment from the audience? Council? Roll call, please.
I'd like to ask a question. In the packet, there's 7 pieces of property that's listed. But I think the funding on this is only for, I believe, the
3.
first 3. Is this to say that the other 4 are optional, or are we going to come back for the other 4 at a later date?
Wyman?
The Airport Commission was looking at the potential of acquiring all of them, and they got appraisals on all of them. But then they backed up and said, what's the minimum we'd have to develop the terminal building they're looking at? And they determined that the first 3 were critical. So they wanted to start with that and see if they could get that done. And then they would decide whether to go to the second group or the third group.
You know what the timetable is on that? On the
There's not been a
reevaluating?
timetable set or a funding source to go beyond this point.
Yeah.
So if we look at the map, 4 and 6, is that what it is? The 3 most eastern pieces of property?
Pardon me?
There's a map on page 23, you might not have it.
Right, it would be the first 3
The easternmost pieces along Emma?
right.
Is that the 2
There's-
properties in
there's all 3
the store?
houses.
Is that a store? Is the
No.
3rd property? No.
No,
Okay.
it's just 3 houses.
Okay.
One of the houses sits back behind,
Okay.
Looks like 3, 4, and 6 on the map.
3, 4, and 6, and that's the east, which is actually closest to the airport now, right?
right.
Yeah, on Emma.
Okay.
And the thinking is, we'd like to expand all the way up to whatever street that is, I guess? On the other considerations?
They're, depending on how far they can go and the money they can raise, they develop more.
And develop it in what way?
Well, the first phase would be to put a executive terminal building there that business people flying in
Along
could,
Emma?
right along Emma. You'd have to have an apron big enough and a taxiway to get from the runway to the terminal building and a taxiway to park it on. And then, second part, if they go that far, would be to build a hangar that they could, if they were staying overnight, that they could put the airplane in the hangar there.
With, looks like our unreserved balance in CIP, about 2.75, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. If this, now, one thing that I would like to remind the council, when we discussed the budget last November, there was a lot of capital requests that were removed out of the budget in order to make our budget work. And part of that was police vehicles, and even some, every department had capital requests that we removed from the budget so that they could come back and ask for it out of CIP. And I guess what I'm asking is, in your opinion, we spend the 300 and some odd thousand on this. We still have a lot of fire vehicles that we need to buy this year, correct? I'm sorry,
police
police.
vehicles have already been deducted out of the balance, and this balance is left over after that.
Now, didn't we buy half?
Well, we set aside the other half, even though
Oh,
we
so
have,
that's already reserved out of here?
What number are you
Yes.
talking about on unreserved, the 2.7?
Yeah, 2.756 million.
Right.
So you're saying the other half of the police vehicles are already accounted for?
Right, we haven't bought them, but we set aside the
aside.
money for them.
Okay.
And most of the fire vehicles, we plan on acquiring out of the bond fund, but we're gonna wait, make sure we've got enough money to cover the higher priority items before we purchase them.
I think it's an important thing for us to expand off of Emma for the airport. I'm just wondering out loud if it's that far off in the future, do we want to tie up 300 and some odd $1,000 if we know we got other capital projects that are going to be requested?
Now, unless I misunderstood, Wyman, the building is not that far out. It's whether or not we need that other land that's out further. Is that right, Wyman?
I couldn't hear you.
The land that we're trying to buy right now will be where the new terminal sits, correct?
Possibly the parking lot.
So the new
You have to have a
terminal,
parking lot in front of it, then the terminal building, and then the airport apron.
so the new terminal will not be built on this land.
It'll be close to it, but most of this will wind up being the parking in front of it. You've got to have parking for the people that come into the terminal and vehicles.
I understand. What I'm asking though is, will the terminal be built now, or will we have to wait till we can buy some more land to build the terminal?
This would provide enough room to build the parking lot at the terminal and to operate it with one or two planes there.
Okay. So it can be done now.
Right, with just these three pieces of property.
So, I apologize for following up on what Colby was asking about on the CIP fund. If we look at the CIP fund, and you may not have that in front of you either, but there's like he was asking about police cars, and they're basically reserved, or whatever you call it, already designated in the
Project list.
yes, project list. There's also things like 56th Street widening, Don Tyson to Johnson Mill, and Shaw Family Park. Well, for instance, 56th Street widening, is that going to be a bond project?
Yes, what are you looking at?
Well, there's $791,000 set aside for a 56th Street widening.
It may be the south part of 56.
Well, that's
So
what it
not-
is.
that is not going to be a bond?
It could possibly be, but we started that was a highway project on the south end.
Okay.
And we started it quite some time ago, and we probably set aside that money before we had the bond issue.
That's from
To-
Don
to the
Tyson.
wide-
So it's not going to be reimbursed by the bond, or do we know?
Not at this time. Y'all haven't designated it as a bond project.
Okay. And what about Don Tyson Extension 56 to Highway 112?
That's also a highway department project that's been going for quite some time.
Okay, so that money definitely is going to come out of CIP then?
Right, you could declare it a bond project, and put that money back in CIP if you so chose.
Okay.
Do you think that terminal in that parking lot, would you estimate that's going to be a year from now, 3 years from now? I mean, do we have any ballpark idea
Of-
for the airport terminal?
Repeat your question?
Do you have any idea ballpark? Are we looking at next year to start that, or in 2 years, 3 years?
It'll depend on funding, how soon they can fund it. The next phase would be to clear these property if we acquire them and get the land in as the condition that we can maintain it. And then we'd start looking at doing some engineering on the core samples of the ground to see what kind of base we'd have to start with a taxiway.
Part of me'd like to wait till towards the end of the year when we know what we have left in CIP, if it's that far out. But then again, property values downtown are not going down at all. It may
Well,
be.
I think we're gonna need this for the airport sooner or later,
And I'd hate for someone else to come in and buy it and then not wanna sell it.
or up the price.
Are they wanting to sell it?
That I don't know.
Wyman, is there some grants that are already taken into consideration, or is this, is there a chance it would be less than 304,000, or is there grants or anything that may be available that could reduce this number? Is this a-
There's FAA grants that are available, but we get 150,000 a year allotted from FAA. This year and next year, it's committed to resurfacing the runway and replacing the runway taxi lights. And they pretty well tell us what priority or projects will be, and the next project they want is for us to extend the east side taxiway all the way to the north, so that the jets on the east side don't have to cross the runway in the middle of the runway to get to the end of the airport. It greatly improves safety at the airport to extend that taxiway. So it would probably be about 3 or 4 years out before we would be able to consider any of the FAA money toward this project.
Okay, anything else? Do I have a motion?
You have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
What I thought. Roll call, please.
Do you make it?
Who made the motion?
I made the motion.
I second it.
Have it now.
Uh-huh.
Watson,
Yes.
Fulfer,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
Next, we have a resolution appropriating funds for a pickup for community engagement. This is a truck they need. The other one's not very reliable anymore, and it's a state bid fund to Lewis Ford for $23,840.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Anything in the, anybody in the audience? Anybody at the council?
Well, so it's a replacement vehicle?
Ron?
Yes, sir, Mr. Watson. It's a vehicle, we got a 2007 Chevy Colorado that's not very reliable, so we're going to try to replace it.
Gonna trade it in, or what will we do?
I haven't talked to the police department, but I'll probably put it on the auction and get it auctioned off.
Okay. And when we do police auctions, what happens to that money?
I think it goes into the general fund.
What, it's a 2007 with a ton of miles on it?
Yes, sir.
Wonder if there's any other way to sell a pickup besides on the auction?
I don't know. I can check and see, but I think they have pretty good success at selling,
Really?
the older vehicles that they auction off.
Now, when you're talking about the police auction, you're talking about old cars?
Yes, sir.
So we're buying cars out of CIP for the police department. Do we know if that's, do you know, Ernest, if it's going back into CIP? Didn't we designate that
Some
or
of-
ask for it to?
Some of that in the police cars, I believe we did designate to
back
go back
into
into
CIP.
CIP. Yes, we did.
You know, it may not be $3,000 that you get, I bet you get
Right.
$3,000 for
Yeah.
an '07 pickup though.
This one, I don't know. To be honest.
Well, I'd kind of like to see the money go back into CIP if there's any way we can do that.
Want to add that to the resolution?
I agree with Jeff. I think that's how we did those other vehicles we purchased. We might as well be consistent.
We can add to the resolution that any proceeds from the sale of the other one go back in CIP. With
So-
that amendment, who made the motion?
I made the motion. Yes.
I'll still second.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox. Yes. Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Carry 7-0 as amended.
Next, we have a resolution authorizing the execution of an engineering services contract for street and drainage improvement to 64th Street, and this is part of the bond program.
Motion, resolution passed.
Second.
Any comments from the audience? Anybody on the council? Roll call, please.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox. Yes. Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
7-0.
That brings us to item 13, Personnel Committee reports, and with Chairwoman Kathy Jaycox.
Thank you, Jim. Gina's approaching this. This is fairly simple and straightforward.
This is just making a change to allow department heads to make changes throughout the year to job descriptions that don't result in budgetary changes, strictly for operational purposes.
So as Gina says, it's very simple. If it includes any kind of a budget change, it would come back to us.
Yes,
But
that's
this is
addressed
just job
in-
descriptions.
Yes. Budget changes to job descriptions are addressed in section 4.6 of the personnel manual, and we're not making any changes to that.
I'm going to move the resolution pass.
Second.
Any comments from the audience, from the council? Roll call, please.
Evans.
Ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox. Yes. Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Carry 7-0.
Okay, next is item 14, Health, Sanitation, and Property Maintenance, and it's me. It's an ordinance ordering the raising, demolition, and removal of certain residential structure within the city of Springdale, Arkansas, located at 1,000 Low Road, and to declare an emergency and for other purposes. This was brought forward to us from what meeting, from committee?
June 4th without a
June 4th,
recommendation.
Without a recommendation. I think, Tom, it came to us actually before that, didn't it?
No, I think it was that was the first time I ever came in front of you guys, was that committee meeting, so.
It was April 30th committee meeting, then it was
Yeah,
tabled to the
right.
June 4th committee meeting, and then it was forwarded to council tonight without a recommendation.
Gonna let Tom talk to us about this.
Well, council, I did go by there before coming to the meeting tonight, and from the outside appearances, I can't see that anything has been done. When they were at the last time we talked about this, which was June 26th or whatever it was, I can't remember the exact date, they were still moving things out of the house. But they said they would have it out and be tearing it down, but they haven't. And I don't see them in the audience tonight, so they were there when we set the meeting for tonight, so I don't know where they're at, so.
So, they were at the committee meeting in June,
They've been to every meeting except for this one, yes.
and at some committee meeting, not a council meeting, right? Committee meeting. At some committee meeting, we told them it would be presented to the council tonight.
Correct.
Pretty sure of that, I can't
Yep.
remember.
It was the very last one we had. We definitely I wrote it down here about having a report to you tonight. And even the very get-go, the gentleman had stated right away that he was going to tear it down, and I thought he had stated he would have it done in 60 days. They were having to move stuff out of there, but I
Right,
think we've already exceeded that 60 days, so.
okay.
I drove by there this evening on my way here, and it doesn't look like they've done anything. I can't tell from the outside that they've moved anything. I know that they've told us that they were gonna need more time for the outbuildings and the chicken houses, and they look worse than the house does, and I think we've given them long enough myself. So with that, I'm going to move that the ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, anybody from the audience? Anybody else on the council? Roll call, please.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox. Yes. Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes,
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 7-0. It has an emergency clause, which would, if the emergency clause passes, they would have 30 days. If you don't pass the emergency clause, that would technically give them 60 days.
What did you just say, Ernest? I couldn't hear you.
The ordinance has an emergency clause on it. If you pass the emergency clause, then they would have 30 days to get it down, or the city will do it. If you don't pass the emergency clause, that would technically give them 60 days.
So why do they have 30 days if we pass the emergency clause?
Do what?
Why do they have 30 days if we pass the emergency clause?
Because the ordinance says they have 30 days from the
Date of
date of
effect.
effective date of the ordinance, which would be tonight if you pass the emergency clause.
Okay,
Not, then it would be 30 days from the effective date, which would be 30 days from tonight, which
so
would
a total of 60.
Tom, how long have you been working on this property?
You know, I visited with them before I sent the letter, but I sent them the letter August 17th of 17. So we're right at a year right now, so.
So what's the steps if we make it effective tonight, which really means 30 days?
If you do it for 30 days, and then, you know, we normally will notify them either through mail again that it's passed, and it's like they have the right to come in and get the demolition permit, get started within 10 days, finish within 30.
Okay.
If they don't, on day 31, I could already have bids set up, and I can take it down on
And
day 31.
Is that your intention,
Yes, sir.
to do it?
I do it as quick as it comes to me, so.
I'm going to move the emergency clause pass.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any comments from the audience? Council? Roll call, please.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Wolfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Emergency clause passes 7-0.
All right, thank you, council.
Thanks, Tom.
And the next one's number 15, and I'm going to turn that over to our city attorney.
Thank you. This is an ordinance annexing certain property into the city of Springdale, Benton County, Arkansas. I apologize, the attachments didn't make it into the packet, but I brought those with me if you want to see exactly where this property is located. This is coming in, this is a property owner initiated annexation. They went through the steps with the required statutory steps with Benton County to de-annex from Benton County and annex into the city of Springdale. And this would, the last part, which is us accepting the property. It's 40 acres.
This is just a quarter of a mile up the hill from my place.
Can we de-annex your place?
If we, let's see now, maybe in December, no. It's Rick Burrows from Multicraft, and they're doing a lot of nice work up there on the hill, and I'm gonna make a motion that this ordinance approved.
Second.
Anybody in the audience? Council? Roll call, please.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Wolfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
It does have an emergency clause to make it effective immediately.
Move the
First clause
emergency
be
clause.
adopted.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Watson?
Yes.
Wolfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 7-0.
Okay, 16, any comments from department heads? I see Wyman coming up.
It's almost time to start working on the 2019 budget. We're going to hold two input sessions where the citizens have an opportunity to give us input before we start on the budget. First session will be at 11:30 on July the 25th. Second session will be at 5 p.m. on July 26th. We encourage anybody that's interested to come, and we can explain departmental operation, current budget, and give them a chance to put input into what they'd like to see in next year's budget.
Where will those sessions be, Wyman? You gave us the dates and the times, but not the place.
11:30 a.m. on July the 25th.
But where?
Where at?
They'll be in this room here.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it?
I've got a question while Wyman's here. I know last time we discussed the budget, we had come up with the idea of not shifting the $2 million from CIP to the general unless we had to. Is that correct? Is there any indication that we're going to need to do that?
Well, actually, we weren't shifting it from CIP. I think the motion was to, if we had to have it, to take it out of that reserve that was set aside out of CIP a few years ago. But I don't think we've had to pull any out yet. We're
Okay.
barely breaking even.
Okay.
Thank you, Wyman. Any comments from the council?
Just a quick one. I have asked that we, at committee next Monday night, we discuss our current fireworks ordinance and any changes we might consider based on the number of phone calls and some things that happened over this past holiday. I think we should just review it and see if there's anything we can do to change it. So this is just kind of for information purposes. For those that are interested in commenting and giving us any information, contact the mayor's office, any of us, or come to the meeting at 6 o'clock next Monday evening.
5:30.
5:30, thank you, Ernest, 5:30. Well, it could be 6 if we're last.
Be too late.
But yes, 5:30, just kind of a heads up.
I have one. I was out riding today a little bit, and I went up by Station 7 out on Harbor, and I'm very disappointed that we haven't gotten any further on that than what we have. They just started working on the median today, and it just seems to me like we've okayed that a month ago. I don't know exactly what's going on, but I'd sure like to see us get busy on that.
Brad, do you have any information as a city engineer? Oh, I think there's somebody approaching the podium that might.
Basically, they were trying to mobilize all the actual contractors and trying to get them lined up. They also were waiting on a couple of permits that they needed, and then the okay to actually close the lane so that they could do the median work. Their intent is to try to get all the median work done before school starts, so they're going to try to expedite and do all that first, and then they'll start on the actual building. I think you'll see things move pretty quickly after probably tomorrow.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments from the council? City Attorney?
No, sir.
And
Move to adjourn.
Acting Mayor, I have nothing. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.